So now that I've had some time to actually play around with this new Breen Yod-Thot Dreadnought Carrier rather than just yelling about the fact that it's a promo ship, I wanted to give you guys a more hands-on review of what this thing is, what this thing does, and just the a better idea of the accessories that this thing comes with. Now, the Yod-Thot is not only a pretty powerful vessel, but it's also got some pretty nice stuff attached to it. And that's a bit different than what we've seen over the past, year or so from lockbox and promo ships. A lot of them have been feeling pretty subpar over the past year. And honestly, I don't think a lot of people have complained about all that much because these ships tend to be very expensive, very hard to obtain, and they are single character unlocks. So if these ships are purely just, space Barbie that don't have anything that really affect the meta, that's all well and good. It's, definitely good for players' wallets more than anything else. That's not the case with this ship, though. First thing is the Yod-Thot actually has really solid stats. It's got intel and command seating on there, so you've got a good variety of build options. You can go full energy weapon builds with this, like I did. Turn this into a forward-facing beam fire at will build here. Though with that lieutenant commander seat, you could go with a full torpedo build instead. So you've got the you've got one option or the other. These two specializations complement each other pretty well. My only real complaint about the seating here is that the intel seat was on the commander level tactical seat, but it kind of has to be because this is an intel ship. But yeah, that's about my only sore spot on this. But it really doesn't matter. I could just fill this commander seat up with all intel seating and then just put my tactical seating here in the universal command seat, and also that instant seat. But yeah, for an energy weapon build, you can just fill that up with all the intel seating that you need. You got your uncon triggers, you got OSS, and then your other uncon trigger here. You've got all the tactical abilities that you need. You got just enough engineering seating just to get those emergency power abilities in, and then you've got enough science seating to get gravity well on there, which is always nice. And converting this into a torpedo build really wouldn't be that big of a deal for the bridge officer seating. You got concentrate firepower there, and you can just trade out OSS for torpedo high yield. Obviously, you want to change around some of the other abilities too, but those are kind of the essential spots right there. But yeah, you got enough wiggle room for both build types. So let's look at the rest of the ship too. It's also got a 5-2 weapons layout, which is also really nice, meaning this is going to be a very forward-facing ship in terms of both energy weapons and torpedoes, depending on which build type you're wanting to go with. Though that does bring with some difficulty on the ship, given that the trying to maneuver this thing to keep things into your forward firing arc is rather difficult with it because it has a turn rate of 5 degrees per second. I mean, that's base turn rate. Obviously, you can get that up a bit, but it's still, like I said in the first impressions video, the thing handles like a house. It is going to be not an easy thing to fly around in. This is definitely going to be one of those ships I recommend using the emergency con hologram on here. Where is he? Yeah, use the emergency con hologram every time you use emergency power to engines. It lowers the cooldown of your evasive maneuvers, meaning you'll be able to move this thing around that much more easily. Still turns like a house, but at least it'll do it more quickly. But it has a low uptime, so emergency power to engines, boom, already off cooldown. Another nice thing about this ship is that it is a dreadnought carrier, so it has 2 hangar bays. So one thing I did with this ship is that I leaned into a bit of the carrier theme here. I got 2 pets here. I'm using the Type 7s and the Elite Valor Fighters, and in the Starship traits, I also threw on repurposed cargo bay hangar, so I can get technically a 3rd hangar bay. So I've got a bunch of fighters running around, and I've also got the Hydra console on here too to give those pets some, an extra hit of phaser damage when they are out when I activate this console. So that's kind of nice too. It would probably be smarter to go with double Type 7s just so you can really maximize the amount of debuff you get out of these things, but I like having a little bit of damage out of my pets too, so I just kind of go with one Type 7 and then one of the Valors, and then I get the repurposed cargo bay hangars to get the Valkyries. Oh, and I put superior area denial on here too to further buff the pets. Now let's talk about the Yod-Thot's console, shield frequency overload, because I definitely underestimated this thing in my first impression video. Because this thing is actually doing some pretty decent damage. I looked at this thing and saw shield drain and just kind of rolled my eyes at it. And that was a mistake on my part because it also deals damage to the enemy's hull, equivalent to how much shields that you've drained, which caps at 100k damage. And that's actually adding up pretty nicely. Now, unfortunately, I can't really demo the console here in this area. This is the opening portion to the episode Doomsday Machine. I like to use this as sort of a demonstration ground for stuff because I can knock out all these enemies and they're still there. They don't actually get destroyed. They just kind of sit there and kind of like test dummies. But the way this console works is that it actually needs shields on an enemy in order to do damage to them. And obviously they won't have shields here, but I can at least show you the effect here, which heads up, the effect is broken. The beam there, that's supposed to stay there like constantly while the effect is active. So that's broken right now. They did say in the live stream, hopefully that'll get fixed soon. But yeah, that's the effect isn't totally accurate as to what it was in the show currently. But yeah, what it does is while it's active, it will drain whatever enemy you're targeting. It'll drain its shields, and then whether it drains all of an enemy's shields or the 100k cap that the console has, then it will deal that amount of damage to the ship's hull. Also, I remember commenting in the first impression videos, it didn't say what type of damage the console deals, and I think I figured it out. I think it's anti-proton damage because yesterday I had a personal endeavor to deal anti-proton damage in space, and every time I activated this console, that endeavor would fill up. So I'm pretty sure this console deals anti-proton damage. I don't know if it's buffed by anti-proton buffs. I don't think it would be. Also, it wouldn't really matter because of that 100k cap on the damage, so it doesn't really matter. But yeah, I'm pretty sure it deals anti-proton damage. Anyway, this console has proven to be pretty powerful. I actually did a Jupiter Gauntlet to test this thing, and while that Jupiter Gauntlet was insanely laggy, it was ridiculous. The server issues over the past couple of days have been ridiculous. But even with the amount of lag I got in that Jupiter Gauntlet run, this thing did I think it was like 42k damage. No, almost 43k. So even with the amount of lag I was getting in this run, this still ended up being one of the highest damage dealers on the parse. So that is rather impressive. The only real issue with the console is that, one, it has a forward 90-degree arc, so you're not going to really be able to benefit from this thing on a broadside build, and you have to make sure that when you're using it, you are using it against enemies that actually have shields up still. But yeah, beyond those two issues, this thing is a pretty solid console and will do well on pretty much any sort of build type, because draining shields is actually pretty nice. It seems to be pretty powerful even on a non-drain build. So this is a solid pickup for a console that you can just throw on anything if you just need some sort of damage dealer console and you're lacking something else that would be better. I don't think this is going to affect the meta too greatly all that much, but at the same time, it's a solid console. So I would definitely, I wouldn't say I would go out of my way to get it. I mean, really, there's only one reason to really get this ship. That's the Starship trait. But yeah, the console will be nice to have too. But yeah, the really nice thing about it is that it'll work with pretty much any build type too, because taking down shields and dealing damage to a single target, that's always going to be helpful no matter what you're running. So you could run this on an energy weapon build. It would be really helpful on a torpedo build, actually, because draining shields on a torpedo build is really helpful because shields can resist damage from torpedoes much more easily than they can energy weapons. So I feel like this is going to be a really nice console for torpedo builds. And for EPG, it'll be okay. With EPG stuff, you generally want more AoE stuff than single target stuff like this, but this would still be a decent addition if you're lacking any of the other meta EPG console stuff. But really, I think this is going to really shine for torpedo builds if you're wanting to grab this console. Hopefully the servers will stabilize to the point where we can actually get some proper DPS numbers out of this thing. But right now it just looks like it's performing pretty well, but it's tough to say just how well it's performing. Now, the pets on this thing, they're probably the most disappointing part of the ship. Well, second most disappointing. The most disappointing thing is that it's a promo ship. But the pets, they're not great. I mean, they have fire at will, which is okay on frigate pets, but none of the other abilities that they have are particularly useful. Like directed energy modulation, that's okay for players if you're really wanting to improve your power, improve your power consumption and stuff like that. But it's not something that's going to do much for NPCs like this. It's not that powerful. And the energy siphon, again, not that powerful. It can be useful against players, but against other NPCs, it doesn't do enough to really make a difference. With your pets, you really want something that's going to debuff their damage resistance or deal a lot of damage against them. And this doesn't really do either. Like the fire at will is okay. It doesn't have any torpedo buff, so you're not going to be able to buff its torpedoes. Not that you really care because it has transphasic torpedoes, which aren't very good. And for some reason, it has a Polaron turret, despite the fact that they gave it fire at will for the firing mode. That makes no sense to me, because that means that that Polaron turret is going to do basically nothing. So, yeah, I mean, I guess you could buff it with superior air denial. I guess that's something. but then what's the point of that? Because it's already got fire at will on it, and you're just kind of, I don't know, it feels like you're kind of wasting the starship trait. I remember Casual SAB, he was testing this on a live stream yesterday, and he tested the elite version of these pets next to the Type 7 shuttles, and the Type 7 shuttles actually did more damage than the elite versions of these Breen Imperium frigates, which is really saying something, because the whole reason we like the Type 7 shuttles is not for their damage. We like the Type 7 shuttles because of the amount of debuff they're able to put out. They don't actually do that great damage. The reason we like them is because they are able to improve your damage. So the fact that these things did more damage than these frigates really says a lot. Now, the ship also comes with an innate weapon, the, what do they call it? The Imperium Polaron Subjugation Array. It's a new type of lance weapon, and this is kind of interesting because you don't typically see lance weapons on Dreadnought carriers. That's something you normally see on normal carriers or juggernauts. Usually a carrier forgoes the lance weapon for the second hangar bay. So that's kind of a unique feature for this specific Dreadnought carrier, but because of the general vibe of this ship, of it being huge and enormous and incredibly well armed, kind of makes sense that they'd give it something else to kind of further emphasize that point, but also kind of gave it one additional drawback because it has a lance weapon. They seem to decide that means it doesn't get a battle cloak. So the cloaking device on this thing is just a normal cloak, unlike most other 32nd century cloaking devices, which I'm sure some people will have a fuss about because, you know, some people really like to have battle cloaks on there. I don't really care about the cloak, honestly. Like, I hardly ever remember to use battle cloaks in fights. And to me, cloaking device is something for stealthy, subtle ships. This is not a subtle ship. This is not a ship of subtlety. This is a ship that was designed to be like a hammer with a warp drive and a lot of beam arrays. That's the vibe this thing gives. So yeah, I don't really care about the lack of a battle cloak when we've got this lance weapon here, along with 2 hangar bays and all that. Now, unfortunately, I haven't gotten a really decent measure for the damage output on this thing because, like I said earlier, surface stability has not been great. I did in that Jupiter Gauntlet run, where I got some decent numbers out of the console on this thing. The subjugation array did very poorly. Now, there are a number of factors there. Because one, like I said, service stability has not been great, but also it deals Polaron damage. This is not a Polaron build. I don't have a Polaron build set up on this character, unfortunately, so I'm not going to be able to get the full amount of damage out of this thing without throwing on some more Polaron buffs on here. And also, it's an innate weapon, so it has a 2-minute cooldown. The only way to lower those is with the Starship trait Eclectic Weapons Collector, I think it's called. Eclectic Collector of Armaments, that's the name of it. This is the Starship trait that comes off of the Shrike, which is another very expensive premium ship. But yeah, this is the only thing that I know of that will actually lower the cooldown of innate capital ship weapons. And this thing requires you to use other sorts of weapons, including universal consoles and your base weapons as well, to help lower those cooldowns as well. So having this Starship trait would probably be of benefit to better supporting the subjugation array on this thing, but I didn't bother using it just because I wanted to lean more into the beams themselves as well as the fighter pets. But at the very least, I can give you an idea of what the thing looks like when it is fired off. And yeah, that's really all it is. Just one shot of those 4 Polaron beams that comes out of the front of the ship. Okay, here's another look at it from this angle. There you go. It looks cool. I'm just not entirely confident that it's going to do a lot of damage. So that's pretty typical with innate weapons. They're never super powerful because it's basically like having an extra weapon or an extra console on your build, so they don't want to make these things too OP. And of course, like I said, it deals Polaron damage. I'm not running a Polaron build on it, so you can certainly get this thing to be more powerful. It's just I'm not going to be able to do that on this build. But yeah, it looks neat. Now, the only thing left to talk about for this ship is the Starship trait, Breen's Free Fire. Now, there really isn't a whole lot to say about this Starship trait because it's pretty straightforward. It just extends the duration of beam fire at will, which is something a lot of us have been asking for a very long time. The first thing to note is that while I did post a text update this in the first impression video, judging from the comments, a lot of you missed that. But yesterday in the live stream, Borticus did comment on the fact that they are going to be extending the duration on the Starship trait. So instead of 7 seconds, they're actually going to be extending that out to 9 seconds.
We actually did a little bit of a review this morning to check precedence against other firing mode extensions. So We actually just decided a couple hours ago we're going to make this even better. In fact, to be more in line with the cannon scatter volley extender. So this will actually, in a future patch, this will actually be extended all the way out to a 9-second extension.
Well, I'm certainly glad that they are going to be implementing that change. I do find it odd that they didn't think to compare this to other firing mode extenders before releasing the Starship trait. Seems like an obvious step to me, but what do I know? But yeah, extending this up to 9 seconds will basically bring this up to par to what Whirling Barrage does for Cannon Scatter Volley, leaving only 1 second of downtime, which you're hardly ever going to notice. The Starship trait is a bit of a game changer for beams because it really does open up some nice possibilities for beamfire will builds. Mainly that beamfire will builds are now going to be able to use a Maelstrom torpedo or any other torpedo with a long cooldown, because Entwined Tactical Matrices doesn't allow you to do that, because then it screws up the firing rate between the two firing modes, and then you ended up with downtime on fire at will. So this will allow you to keep fire at will up consistently while also being able to use a Maelstrom torpedo or something else like an energy weapon torpedo, which has a cooldown of 12 seconds, which again is too long for ETM. Now I just need them to release a wide-angle Maelstrom torpedo so I can use that for my broadside builds. Alternatively, you could just not use a torpedo at all and just use all beams with beam fire at will, because now you'll be able to do that with the Starship trait. Because with Entwined Tactical Matrices, you have to use torpedo spread in order to activate your other version of fire at will in order to keep it up 100% of the time with that. You're not going to have that problem with the Starship trait. So if you want to go all beams, you can with the Starship trait. So yeah, that is going to be everything for my hands-on review of this ship. So to sum up, it's a solid ship. It's good stats. It handles like a truck. So if you don't like big, bulky, hard to maneuver ships, you're probably not going to be into this. But if you do like that sort of thing, this thing's got a nice weapons layout. It's got a nice bridge officer layout. Got 2 hangar bays. So you've got some nice pet support there as well. The console was a bit of a surprise for me. This is proving to be pretty nice. So I'm really liking how this thing is. The Starship trait, pretty straightforward there. This is the fire at will extender that we have been wanting for years now, and it's finally happening. Well, it will be soon. Technically, it's not quite at what we want it to be, but they have said that they're going to be upping this to 9 seconds, so it will be in a future patch. We don't know when that's going to be, but hopefully soon. Really, the only real downside with this thing is the pets. They're kind of underwhelming, but whatever. You're never going to beat the Type 7s anyway, so just go with those. But yeah, I hope you found this video helpful. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. If you'd like to further support the channel, become a member to gain channel perks. Check out the merch store down below. Check out the affiliate links. If you're ever shopping at the Epic Game Store, be sure to use my content creator code STU1701. These things really help me out, and I really do appreciate it. Either way, thank you so much for watching. My name's Stu, and I will see you guys next time.